Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad that you're able to join us for the second webinar. We're so pleased with Beth Tumminello from Calhoun High School. We're so pleased that we were able to get Beth for a second session, and I know you'll all enjoy what she has to say and learn and be inspired by her. Wacom technology, 35 years of digital pen input technology, and all of the great things that technology has brought to the world. Now we're seeing that come to life in education, and there's so many exciting things. Today, our webinar, Science Instruction in the Hybrid and Remote Learning Environment. It will give you some new ideas, some practical techniques for how you can apply and use Wacom digital pen and tablet technology to your instruction, to your work with whole class, one-to-one, small groups. So let's jump in. Few quick housekeeping logistics here. We'll all be together for about an hour. We will save the last 10 minutes for questions and answers. I'm going to ask you please to use the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we will keep track of those so we can address those in our last 10 minutes together. We can't see you when you raise your hand, and we will ask, you all are welcome to chat with one another, but if you have a specific question for Beth, please put it in the Q&A and we will address those later towards the end. Just because our hour together is packed with some great content from Beth. We may not get to all the questions, but if we don't, we will do our best to get answers out to the ones we can't address live to all of you. We're recording today's session. A YouTube link will be forwarded to you after the session. And so with that, we're going to jump ahead here. For the last, I think really since March, we're hearing from science teachers in middle and high schools about some of the challenges and some of the opportunities to engage their students in remote, blended, and on-premise learning environments, using videos, simulations, and all kinds of other multimedia resources to support science instruction, because let's face it, folks, it's changing and it will probably continue to change over the year ahead. And we at Wacom just can't think of anybody better to address that with you than Beth. Beth is a chemistry teacher and she'll tell you about that, but a lot of the techniques that she's using work well across the science curriculum, from biology to environmental science to physics, and across math and other STEM topics as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Beth Tumminello, and I will watch for questions. We're so glad you're here. Beth, it's all yours.
Thank you, Linda. My name is Beth Tumminello. I'm really happy to be here. I teach chemistry and AP chemistry at Calhoun High School, and I am from Long Island, New York. And just some of the things that came up in the spring, some of the remote teaching things, now that we may be going back to hybrid or in-person or completely remote, I really feel like some of that is really something that I have to offer to share with you some information about that. So just a little bit about my background. I started using a Wacom Intuos, which is this little guy here, about four years ago or so, for some flipped videos and some review videos and videos maybe when I was absent. And that just really helped me to be able to more easily transition into the remote learning environment. And now that I am going back to school, just in another couple of weeks in New York, I am going back in a hybrid model where I will have half of my students each day and the other half will be streaming live whatever's on the board. They'll be seeing what's on the board. I also plan, and I'm starting to put together some videos to support that, so that the students who are at home, if what's going on in the streaming didn't get to them and they can't ask and answer questions at the times when they're not in school, I'll have some videos made that I'll do some screen recording with the Wacom Intuos. I also recently got, and if you can see this other view here, I also recently got this right here as a Wacom One, which the people at Wacom so nicely sent me, and I'm really excited to show you what I'm doing on that one today. So you might notice that the Wacom Intuos, when you look at it, has just a black part here. For the Wacom Intuos, you use it more the way like you use a mouse, where you're looking at the screen when you're writing on the Wacom Intuos. And when you're using the Wacom One, if you see me, when I look down, it's because this Wacom One has a display. And I can look down, I can use an ink program like Smart Notebook. There's ink tools in Loom. There's ink tools in PowerPoint, or this one here is called Ink to Go. And I can literally write directly on the screen exactly the way that I would write on a smartboard, or even the way that I would write on a printout of this. And it's really, the functionality of the Wacom One is very convenient because of being able to, again, being able to write directly on and see what you're writing, but it can also function as a separate monitor. So you can actually set it up as a separate monitor on your computer and have something where you are writing on one screen and viewing, if you're in Zoom or if you are in Google Classroom, you can set your computer monitor to be the one where you view your students' faces, and you can set the Wacom One to be the screen that you share and that you write on with whatever pen tools. And I'm bumping into other toolbars there, but with whatever pen tools you prefer to use. So if you see me looking down, that's why. And this separate, and here's my hands here, the separate camera angle is just so that you can kind of see behind the curtain, so to speak. Now, this particular part of the slideshow, besides showing you some different things that I use and some different things that I do, I also want to talk about the process of screen recording and making videos by using the Wacom One here. And a couple of things, you might notice that behind me, I have this periodic table backdrop. It is an actual physical backdrop because I do think that many of us, if we need to have a home space to broadcast from, you may not have a place where you can set up a whole studio. So this is just a corner of a bedroom. It's actually, an extra bedroom where I have a desk, and I have a clothing rack set up behind me with a shower curtain, so that whatever is behind there doesn't interfere with my video lessons or with my video recording. And then this view right here, you can see, on this view right here, you can see my desk, and you can see that this really doesn't take up very much space at all. My main pieces that I need for when I'm using my Wacom One would be my laptop, which is connected via HDMI and USB to the Wacom One. And then the Wacom One is here. I have my mouse on the table, which you can't see is out of the frame. And then I also have an external keyboard so that I don't have to be reaching up here. So the external keyboard was a very inexpensive investment on Amazon, and it works very nicely so that I can have my laptop up higher. If you have a desktop computer, you could just put the monitor up behind and the Wacom One on your desk space, and that's very helpful. So it really doesn't take up a whole lot of space. The other place where I tend to set this up is on my kitchen table, but I do it so that my back is to the wall. This way, if I'm broadcasting or if I'm recording and there is a wall behind me, it's much less likely to have something unprofessional behind me. I don't have to worry about laundry or people walking behind me, or something like that. So it is important to find a space, even a small space, to just set up and make sure that what's behind you is appropriate. And if you don't have a spot where the things behind you are appropriate, just shift your perspective around, shift your desk around so that your back is to a wall or something like that. Now, the main differences, again, between the Wacom One and the Intuos that I used to use is that the Wacom One I can write directly on, and I can see it and use it as a monitor. But other than using it as a monitor and seeing what you're writing, the Wacom Intuos can do everything else that I'm going to do in this webinar. My plans are actually to keep the Wacom One at home on my desk set up, and the Wacom Intuos, which it always has, will just be in my bag and will just travel back and forth with me in case I need it anywhere else. So getting into the how-tos. This is the way that my YouTube channel is set up. And you'll see down here again, this is my ink to go toolbar. You'll see that I do pick the pen. I can pick a highlighter or any of these other tools. And I'll be talking more about the ink to go toolbar later. So my YouTube channel, the way that it is set up, first of all, in my classroom physically, if my students are physically in my classroom, I do have a sign at the front of my classroom that says Mrs. T Chem Talk YouTube, so that my students know and can search in Google in case they can't find the channel. But I will be bookmarking any videos that I make on my Google Classroom or send them out to the students via Remind. And if we look at the actual channel, the way that I have it set up right now, at the top of the page is a teacher tech video, and it happens to be the video about how I use my Wacom Intuos and ink to go to make videos. But then I also have sections where my different preps for chemistry can go. I have a section on Regents chemistry videos. And as we would do on a regular board at school, I'm going to change my color and show you that I also have a place where I have AP chemistry videos. So I can direct my students to search for the name of my channel, and then they can go and I will teach them as part of my beginning of the year work. I will show them how to navigate where they need to go if they need to get there from Google, but I will also post to them, oops, I'm bumping into toolbars again, but I will also post to them links in Google Classroom and Remind where they can just go directly to the videos that they need to watch for a particular class lesson. So just getting back to here again, if you are prepping yourself for a video lesson, you want to make sure that you realize and kind of psych yourself up that this is no different than prepping for an in-class lesson. The only difference is that you're going to be recording it or presenting it live, and instead of presenting it live in person, you might be presenting it live via Zoom or Google Meet. So you definitely want to get acquainted with those platforms before you get started, but prepping the lesson itself is no different than being prepared for a classroom lesson. You want to make sure that you have your lesson plan. You want to plan out whatever questions or problems you're going to be working on. And for me, I'm even actually going to point this out to you because you're sort of seeing this view. If you can look on the other view over here, I even have note cards and things for this particular webinar so that I can just glance over and remember what it is that I was going to do next. I also have a notebook on my desk with any of the practice problems pre-done, so I can look there. Just like you would prepare an answer key in class before doing problems on the board, you want to have that same setup when you're working on your video lessons. So you already have these skills. You just might need some tools or some things like that to help you make it a little bit less difficult for yourself. So when doing a video lesson, something that's different for a video lesson as opposed to what you're going to do in class is that you probably want to pick a smaller topic. If you are planning to make a flipped video, you don't want to go ahead and do a full 40-minute lesson, because if you think about it, when you're teaching a 40-minute lesson, you're not speaking for 40 minutes straight. You're introducing, the students might work on practice problems, you're asking questions, and there is that back and forth from the students. So one of the really important things that you want to keep in mind is that you want to pick a small subset of a topic. You don't want to go in with a full 40-minute video. Your students probably will not hang in for that. You want to prepare a slide deck, okay? PowerPoint, Google Slides, Smart Notebook, whatever the case might be, whatever program you normally use. And you want to take a piece of that to use for your video. You can use what you already have. You do not need to reinvent lessons for videos. Okay, you do not need to remake lessons. Go back to what you've already prepared for in-class lessons and see what you can use from there. You can work out exactly how you want to present it, and you want to practice it just like you would go over a lesson plan prior to a lesson. You should go over your slide deck, your PowerPoint presentation, your Google Slides presentation before you start recording. And then you're going to record it in whatever program you decide or present it. And this might seem really familiar because except for step 4, everything else is something that you probably already do when getting ready to teach a lesson. You already do all of these things to prepare. You're just now modifying it slightly in order to be ready for remote teaching. So, the benefits to recording the lessons as opposed to just presenting it live. If you record it, you can use it for a flipped lesson. You can use it for review. I love to use my lessons as review. If I record a video, even if I taught it in class, I can have my students, I can say, hey, you know what? You're still having trouble with that problem that we did on the board. Go to this video. I'll send out a link on YouTube. I'll send out a link in Google Classroom or Remind. Go back and watch it again, then see if you have more questions. You can use it for asynchronous learning, meaning that if you record the video, you can assign it for the students to do at their own preferred time. Or you can even use it for synchronous learning, where if you pre-record a lesson, you can play the video and then take a little bit of a breather. So if I had a video to play right now for you, I could press play, I can turn my camera off, take a sip of water, and just work that way. So you can complement the live teaching with a quick recorded video and then have that video available to be replayed by students who might want that. One of the things that I also do, just a way to use these videos. If I already have a video prepared, like this one, this video used to be part of my summer assignment for AP Chemistry, and it would live on my YouTube channel, and it lives in Google Classroom where my students will access it as part of the summer assignment. I can play this video, but I can also show what the three-dimensional model will look like while I'm playing the video. When this video was made, I used my Ink2Go tools, which you'll see I have the Ink2Go toolbar here. Sorry, it was a mouse instead of a pen. You'll see that I do have this Ink2Go toolbar at the bottom of the screen here. It does allow me to make screen recordings. It allows me to turn on the webcam, and there's a bunch of other functionality there. But I can also play this video in the background like I'm doing now, and I can show the three-dimensional model. Possibly, I can even have my students with some household objects. One of the things we use for model kits, if students don't have access to the actual model kits, would be gumdrops and toothpicks. So see if you can make a tetrahedron with gumdrops and toothpicks. See if you can make a trigonal-pyramidal shape with gumdrops and toothpicks. See if you can compare them and see that if I just take off one of the atoms from the top, I go from tetrahedron to trigonal pyramidal, okay, or trigonal pyramid, okay? And you can have these videos in the bank, so to speak, and play them while you're teaching. This is a video that I have on YouTube that I have embedded in a Google Slides deck. All you do in Google Slides is go to add video, and you can add a YouTube video by URL. And I can go ahead and I can take this video, and while I'm presenting on Zoom, which is exactly what I'm doing right now, the students can see my face. I can talk over the video instead of having the audio playing, and I can say, okay, look, let's just go back for a second and let's look at the trigonal pyramid. Then let's compare the trigonal pyramid to the V shape or the bend. Okay, look, 109.5 degree angle, 109.5 degree angle, and I can go back and forth. Once these videos live on YouTube or live in your Google Drive or anywhere else where you keep them recorded, now you can use it as a backdrop for hybrid teaching, live teaching, review, screencasting, anything. It really, once you make it, you have it forever. So it might seem as though, you know, you might be concerned about making these videos, but once you start making them and just saving them and keeping them organized, you can use them for so many different things besides just hybrid teaching or remote learning. It really, in my opinion, is very worth the effort. When you're preparing your topic for your slide deck, again, just going back to that, your topic should be very focused. Think about 1/3 or 1/2 of a typical in-class lesson. And even if you have your students watch multiple of these videos in a night, each video should be very focused so that if a student feels as though they need to watch it over, they don't need to decide, okay, well, do I need to watch over the first half or the second half? Or do I need to watch from the beginning or the middle or the end? If you have your videos in very small slivers, even if you assign multiple videos in a night, you could say, watch video 1, then try practice problems 1 and 2. Then watch video 2 and try practice problems 3 and 4. And if you're having trouble understanding the second video, go back to the first one. You can delineate all of that information in your Google Classroom or Remind or Canvas or wherever you assign your classwork. Your slides should be clear. And if you're live streaming or if you're recording, your slides should provide a space for writing. If you have white space available, you can write. So exactly, I should say exactly the opposite of this slide, because there's nowhere for me to write notes to you, okay? And I want you to think about it right now. Do you prefer to learn when there's a lot of writing, or do you prefer the teacher to write notes that you can see as the teacher is writing? And that's where something like the Wacom 1 or the Wacom Intuos comes in. You can put up just a little bit of information on the top of the screen, and then you can jot down your notes as you are speaking, and the students will be focused on what you're writing instead of having to decide which piece of information is the teacher focusing on. There's a lot of writing on the screen. The students, you can use these topics for students, for topics that students can get on their own to free up that learning time in class. You can use it for more difficult topics when you actually get to see your students face to face, if you've used videos for something that is more easily understood by them on their own. So for example, this particular video is about figuring out the electric cell potential for galvanic, or AKA voltaic cells in chemistry. And because this topic is a simple topic of, hey, look at the 2 reduction potentials, flip the one for sign that makes the overall sum more positive, and then move on. This video is something that I use in AP Chemistry during a school break, so that when the students come back, I don't have to spend 40 minutes of class time going over this. So I will send them home over a break. They will watch the videos. They will answer some questions that go with it. They'll check their answers. If they didn't get them right, they can watch the video again. and they know that when they come back, they will be quizzed on this material. By telling them that they will be quizzed on this material, hopefully they will buy into the fact that they need to know this before they come back. And by using the flipped lessons to cover these easier topics, I can then focus my in-class time during redox and electrochemistry on the more difficult parts of it, which would be something like in AP chemistry, like focusing on, the Nernst equation, or focusing on the delta G equals RT ln K, something like that, so that they come in knowing this, it now becomes prior knowledge, and I can move on in class with more difficult material. And again, this particular video was made with a PowerPoint slide deck that I prepared ahead of time. I had my work and everything that I wanted to write out on note cards, just like maybe I would do in class. I had an answer key there waiting for me. And I used my Wacom Intuos on this one with my Ink to Go program. Again, you can see the toolbar at the bottom of the page there. Maybe I'll go a highlighter this time. You can see the ink bar at the bottom, the toolbar at the bottom of the page there. And it just allows me to write on the screen very easily, just like as if I was presenting this PowerPoint in class on the board. Another thing that I use my flipped videos for would be difficult in-class examples. So if I am presenting an example on the board that has a lot of steps. So this problem here is a lot of dimensional analysis, and I usually do this topic at the start of the school year in AP chemistry, where dimensional analysis is not as second nature for the students at this time. I will present this as a problem on the board. I'll just zoom it up, I'll speed it up a little bit there. And then I will share them this video. And that night, students who had trouble in class can go back and watch the video. Whether you presented it live streaming on a board, or whether you presented it in the classroom on the board, students are going to need review at different times for different topics. And if you have a bear of a problem like this one is, you can have the students review that problem at home on their own, or you can have them watch it before they come into class so you can spend less class time going over it in the classroom. So that's just another idea of how to use these videos, whether you're hybrid or in class or fully virtual. These videos of more difficult concepts, it's like an example problem, really do help the students. I've had students tell me, oh my goodness, I really didn't understand it in class. The bell was about to ring. I didn't have time to stay to ask a question. I can't come to extra help today after school. Thank you so much for sending that video, because now I could go back and rewind. And now I realize I wrote a number down wrong. That's why my calculation wasn't working. Or I did something, I flipped a fraction in my dimensional analysis. That's why it wasn't working for me. And it allows the students to sort of self-check their work as well. One of the things that I'm just going to show you here, this video has no audio. This is a video that I made just to show you, and I just want to pause here. I just want to show you, this is where I'm sitting right now. It's just a very small corner of an office room here. It's just a separate small bedroom. But if you don't have the luxury of having an office in your house, you can really just set up a really small space, okay? And I put this shower curtain hanging up behind me so that it doesn't matter what's behind me. My kids could be walking by. I could have, dirty laundry in a basket somewhere, and I'm not going to be broadcasting that into my students' homes. If you don't have the luxury, or you don't have this kind of a backdrop, you can just turn your desk, turn your table, use a folding table. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Turn it so that your back is to the wall, and then it makes it much less likely that there is anything unprofessional behind you while you are presenting. So again, this is just another video about how I make my videos, but right now where we are going to head, sorry, is on a screen share where I just go through that with you live. So I'm just going to get out of the slideshow. And the first place that I'm going to take you, I want to show you that Loom is a program that is free for educators. You would need to go to loom.com/education. And if you sign in to Loom using, I'm just gonna make my pen a little thicker here, using your school email. If you sign into Loom, you sign up for it using your school email on this page, they will activate your account as a fully functioning, free account. So you'll get all of the functionality of Loom without having to pay for it. And Loom, once you download it, it gives you a piece up here. I'm just gonna hover over it here. And if I click on this little button here, I get the option to record my screen with my camera, my screen only, or camera only. I also, if I had other cameras attached, I could pick a different camera. I have other audio options. So if I was going to play a video, I could do internal audio, but usually you're just going to use your external microphone. Now, this little thing here, a lot of people have asked, how do you get a talking head? Now, obviously, there's two of me now, but Loom is one of the programs where you can record a screen video. You're recording your screen where you can get this talking head. I can make the talking head bigger. I can just put a picture there. If I want to put a photo instead, there's a lot of different options there. I'm just going to turn it off there. Once I go to start recording on Loom, I will get a toolbar, okay? And the toolbar over here will give me a countdown, and it'll give me a set of pen tools. So if you are working without a Wacom product or without a touch screen, you can manipulate this and you can use your mouse. So you can write with your mouse, or I can then go ahead and use, and it's not working for me, hold on. I can use a pen here. Oh, because I'm still in Wacom. Sorry about that. That was me having two different tools competing there. I apologize for that. So in Wacom, I need to be here. I need to be a cursor in both. They were competing. So that's why that wasn't working there. But if I use this, you can see that in Loom, I can use my Wacom to write on the screen. And right now it's set up as a way that it disappears. You can change that function in the toolbar there. So I'm just going to stop that, and I'm just going to get rid of Loom. And what would happen is it will take you to that video. And when you go to that video, it gives you options to copy the link. It gives you options to download it. It gives you options to share it or to just delete it. And I'm just going to delete it because I don't need that video. Something else that you can use besides Loom would be anything in PowerPoint or in Google Slides. So if you had a problem that you wanted to work out, you could open it up in PowerPoint or Google Slides. And in PowerPoint, if you go to your slideshow, and I'm just going to switch this here to get my mouse back. Okay, well, didn't work the way I practiced it. I apologize. But you can write using the PowerPoint ink tools. And if you go to the PowerPoint ink tools, you can go on the screen and you can write. And using the PowerPoint ink tools, which are on the bottom left here, as you can see as I hover, I can use the pen in PowerPoint, and I would need to be either presenting via Zoom, like I am right now, or presenting via Google Meet, or screen recording. I can use this in Loom or in Ink2Go or Screencastify or any of those programs, and I can go ahead and use the built-in ink tools from PowerPoint to go ahead and say, okay, I want to use initial, change, equilibrium process. I want to write down that my K equals NH3 squared over N2 times H2 cubed, and I can speak as I'm explaining as the ink comes up on the screen. Let me just get out of the pen tools. Easier if I do it this way. Just going to go back. And of course, I can't escape out of here. Sorry about that. And when I just go out of escape, it'll ask you if you want to keep the ink tool, keep the ink that you put on there, or take it off. Somewhere else that you can work, which many of us are used to working anyway, is Smart Notebook. And so if you are using Zoom or Google Meet, you can open up your Meet and share the screen directly from your Smart Notebook, which you might be able to get from your school as a license from them. And so I wouldn't use my Ink2Go tools here. I might use my recording feature from Ink2Go, but I would use my ink tools directly from Smart Notebook. And you can see when it's not the web-based program, it does work much more smoothly. Whether it's the one in Ink from Smart Notebook or PowerPoint, those two sets of tools did work more smoothly. And I could go ahead and say to my students, okay, I'm going to set up this problem. Please watch this problem with me. Maybe just like I would do in school, maybe I have it set up on the screen already. And just like you would do if you wanted to highlight something on the board, I can, in Smart, I can pick from all my different pen types, and I can pick from all my different pen thicknesses, and I can say, okay, well, as we write as we look the formula equation, it tells us so much extra information. And this extra information can be modified or can be boiled down if we do this complete ionic equation versus the net ionic equation. And I can go ahead and either use this when I'm screen recording in Loom or in Ink2Go or Screencastify, or I can present this live via Google Meet or Zoom. And I would go through and I would say, okay, as I'm speaking, I can write directly here, and I can write my complete ionic equation. Oh, look, I made a little mistake there. I can go ahead and erase just like I can in the classroom on the smartboard. I can directly just write on this as I'm speaking, and writing on the Wacom one here is just effortless in Smart here. It is just like writing on the board. And again, as I've asked my students over and over again, this is exactly what they want to see, as opposed to having all of that text already on like you would in PowerPoint if you pre-type it, or Google Slides if you pre-type it. And I can go ahead again, I'm making a little mistake here. I can erase. Not mine, you can't see this, but on mine, this is in my way. I can go through and I can change my ink just like I would in the classroom, and I can move around and change colors. And now I can make it a green highlighter to say, okay, look, Here, the iron and the hydroxide changed, so we want to focus in on those two. And then, you know, perhaps I want to change my pen color again to highlight that I'm writing something different down here. And maybe as I write my net ionic equation, I write it bolder. And I can say, okay, now this is highlighted. And what you can see is by using different pen types and different ink colors, and by writing it live as you're speaking, your pacing follows more closely to what it would be on the board in class. And your students, if you are showing this to them as a video and they're watching it on their own, they can pause and watch it back chronologically to see the way that the steps that things go. If you're doing it via Zoom or Google Meet, they can use the features in there to ask you a question about it. And it's much closer to writing directly on the board. And so it makes it much more natural for the teaching there. And let me just get rid of that. Oops. Just want to minimize that so I don't have to deal with saving. And so just again, if that was hopefully answered some of your questions about the practical how-to, but when we're talking about making these videos, what we really want to make sure, again, just to sum up, we shorten the amount of information that we're using, and that we make sure that that we just do it as close to the way that we would do it in the classroom as possible. So I think for me, that was everything that I had prepared for this. So Linda, I don't know if we want to get to questions now.
That would be great, Beth.
Okay. Do you want me to stop sharing my screen at this point for questions?
No, you can
Okay.
you can leave it. You can leave it up. That was terrific, and it's so helpful, I think, to see very practically how you do this, and that it doesn't take Pixar animation to create really engaging lessons.
No, not at all.
I want to encourage all of our folks who have joined us, add your questions to the chat, or any other things that you might have that you want Beth to address. But Beth, I'm wondering if we could start by talking a little bit about, I know you have really embraced the flipped classroom model. Can you talk a little bit about how are you adapting that, given your situation that will be this year, where you're seeing half the kids one day, half the kids another day, some of it streams, not everybody will be able to get on the streaming lesson. Any advice?
Sure, absolutely. I really think that for anyone who's overwhelmed and has not already made videos, you do not have to spend a lot of time making a video. You would prepare the slide deck the same way, and then just go into one of these programs and hit record and teach it. And if there's mistakes that you have to erase, it would be much closer to what actually happens in the classroom anyway. So really, it only should take a couple extra minutes for you to record one of those videos. And once you have that, those flipped videos, I'm going to write on the screen as I talk like I'm teaching, they can really be a backup. And while I do in my district, what we're going to be doing is live streaming. So whatever students are there on the day will be learning from the classroom, and the other students will be watching, a camera feed from the board. They shouldn't be falling behind, but we all know that kids have questions when they're learning, and that's natural. That's part of the process. So my plan is to, on the days, in my Google Classroom, what I have set up is by topic, I have my flipped videos, and those can be there as backup for students who maybe didn't understand the lesson. So if they're watching the video prior to the lesson and then watching the lesson and they still don't understand, they can then go back to this flipped video that was the beginning anyway. So now they go back and say, well, maybe I don't understand step 3 because I didn't understand step 1, and they can go back and watch that at their leisure. And it makes it so that if I'm not available, or if they're not available at the same time that I am, it gives them that opportunity to go back and find my teaching again.
That's a great answer. I think one of the things that's perplexing for everyone teaching science right now, especially in either an all remote or a hybrid environment, is what on earth do we do about lab activities? I thought it was so great to see you use the manipulatives to show a few things, but you know, no matter which set of standards you're following, chemistry is sort of phenomenon based.
Yes.
So how are you dealing with that?
Okay, so first and foremost, and this conversation has been in a lot of places on all the different online communities and among teachers and among friends. And the very first thing that we always want to think about when we're thinking about labs in a home environment possibly, or even in an in-class environment where you are socially distanced, is safety. So we are going to have to know that this year, this start to this year at least, is going to look different. And so while my students may not be able to do certain hands-on with chemicals, I plan to have them do those things, just maybe the measuring portions with water or, you know, something like that, where they can do things that are extremely safe to do in an unattended by me situation where I'm not personally there. But the other thing that I've been doing is I've been making science around us videos. And for example, last year when the closure first started, I had gotten food in the mail, because that's what we all went to around here, was mail order food and you know, food deliveries and things like that. And there was dry ice, and I made a video with dry ice. Just yesterday, I went outside and made a video. I was using a test strip in my pool and talking about acid rain and what can I do to change the pH of my pool, because I mean, there's so much in there. Low pH in pool water allows for algae to bloom, because there's certain pH, if you think about biology, there's certain pH that every living thing prefers evolutionarily. And, you know, talked about adding baking soda as a safe chemical to, you know, as opposed to adding a strong base, which would be more difficult to use safely at home. You know, so I've just been really trying to just walk around me and see where is their science. And if I can share that with my students in little clips here and there, the whole point is to get them to see the science that is around them. We want them to be science literate citizens, and we want them to see that. So maybe they won't be able to do what we'd consider labs because of safety. But if we can just have them observe the science around them at all times, maybe they can still get that hands-on science education.
That's great. And we do have a question in. One of our audience members today really is interested in incorporating being able to see the teacher. And I think a lot of the programs you use do that.
Yes.
So if we could just go over that, but also Beth, take a minute or so or more and talk about why it's so important for kids to see you on screen.
Yes, yes. So not all of my videos have me on screen. And that's based on not knowing this before I started doing my videos. And it's so important for you to make connections with your students. And one of the ways that your students connect with you is by seeing you. We are already losing some of those nonverbal cues when we can't see our students face to face. But your students get nonverbal cues from seeing your face as well. And whenever you look more human, whenever they can look at you while you're teaching, they can see your facial expressions. They can obviously hear your tone of voice, but being able to see your facial expressions really helps to hammer in which points are the most important. And you can see I'm also I'm pretty animated when I speak. So that's how I am in my classroom as well. And I feel like it just gives you that link again to what's normal. And what your students are used to seeing is you teaching whether it's from the front of the room or circulating around the room, but they're used to seeing you and having you present. And if they can see you in the corner, and you can certainly move it to different places, they will be connected with you more, as well as it's really important because any of your students who maybe need to see your mouth moving
Sure.
because of hearing difficulties or processing issues, or even just for attention, it helps people pay attention when they're looking at you when you're speaking. So that's that.
So Beth, just to circle back for a second, Loom is offering a free version for educators.
Yeah.
And Loom does give you the option of showing your screen and seeing your face, right?
Yes, Loom
So
gives you the camera, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Loom
and that's just
yes.
one of many. Beth, let's talk a little bit about.
Sorry, I was still right. Screencastify does also.
Screencastify, right? And we've got a list of those
yes,
folks,
yes.
and you'll see that. Folks, I know from maybe March 13th through the end of the school year, assessment just kind of got put in an instructional parking lot here, but that may not be the case now. So Beth, I think as we were talking, getting ready, you had some great ideas for letting students use some of these tools.
Yes.
So that you can assess really interim, not always high stakes, but at least interim kind of assessments to check understanding, right?
Exactly. And I think that when we think assessment, we usually think tests. And really, that's not the only way that we assess students. And we know as over the last number of years, there's been much more of a push for the intermediate assessments to make sure that you can check that your students are understanding even before you get to the exams. But some of the things that I plan to use for assessment would be something like Flipgrid, or even a simple video using a phone, where the students can participate in an asynchronous environment, so not during class, but on their own time, where they can do a question, answer a question, and videotape it, and maybe put their camera, point their camera to the paper and say, okay, well, I did this step this way because what I was thinking here is I wanted to make sure, I remembered learning that when we do percentages to formula, we're going to pretend that there's a 100-gram sample. So we're going to say that the percentages are grams. And the next thing I did was I used my dimensional analysis. And so if they can explain a problem that way, that might make up for a small piece of not being able to walk around the room and see them face to face, whether it's because of social distancing requirements, right, or whether it's because of physically not sharing a room and being home and not being in the same physical location. Just having your students get used to speaking on video. It used to be that we had to get them, we have to get them over the fear of raising their hand. We have to get them over the fear of coming to the board and explaining something and have them feel comfortable that it's a safe space. We need to also create a safe environment for them to share on Flipgrid or share videos. And Flipgrid, you can make just teacher access, or you can also make it shared with the class. So you do want to make sure that your students know which method or which sharing settings you're using, so that they know if they're sharing it just with you versus sharing it with the whole class, so that they're prepared for that.
Related to this, but different in a way. And I see Charles is just saying there's a Flipgrid webinar on Wednesday, which is great.
Oh, awesome.
of this week, which is terrific. Often in a lot of science curriculum, there's sort of small group projects and students collaborating.
Yes.
How are you planning to deal with that this coming year? I'm sure
I'm still thinking about it. But one of the things that I can do in Google Classroom is you can assign, and I'm sure that in other learning management systems, there's also ways to do subgroups, but you can assign a project that students can work on together, something like Jamboard. I envision being really great for this, but they can even just use a regular old Google Doc that they can all have part of. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of, I know Google is rolling out breakout groups the way that Zoom has it. And, you know, for being able to have multiple groups of students meeting virtually. But for me, I would say shared documents. And then, you know, when they are together, able to be together in class where they're far enough away, where they're far away from each other, or between barriers, you know, with barriers between them, they can still have access to those documents because they won't be sharing paper and pencil and things like that. So now this is just another reason to use the things that we've always had available,
Sure.
but just in a new way to collaborate. And on Google Classroom, I can set an assignment to just be a certain, you know, shared with just a certain subset of individuals.
That's great. That's great. Okay. Any other questions for Beth before we turn it over to Charles? Beth, I think you have a slide. Do you want to share your slide that shows your resources too, so people can
Sure.
kind of get an idea?
I was just going to say thank you, but I'll go there.
We don't want to let you go yet.
So if you look here, I didn't update this from the other one, but these on here are some of the different resources that I have used and that I plan to use. But Ink2Go is my toolbar that I have down here. Whiteboard Fi is a great one for seeing work, which works similar to Jamboard. Loom is the one that is free for educators for video creation. And I highly, highly, highly recommend Cam Scanner as an app that you can use to scan an item and make a PDF. And I train my students, I teach them how to do that at the beginning of the year to make sure that they get their PDF so that they're not just like, you know, these wonky pictures, so that they can hand in assignments on Cam Scanner like that. It links with Google Classroom and, you know, it's easy to use like that. But so is Genius Scan, and there's other ways to do that. There's always more than one way to do it.
So I know you were going to say thank you, but we want to say thank you to you. You have just been awesome, and this will, the deck will be available. And with that, a lot of the great answers you've all been seeing throughout our session today about is this compatible with this, and what do I get, and on and on. Charles, do you want to jump in here? Those great answers have come from Charles, so we'll hand it over to you, Charles, and thank you all.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Charles from Wacom. Beth, could you go a couple slides forward?
This one?
There we go. Yes.
Okay.
So this being a Wacom webinar, we should probably talk a little bit about our Wacom products. So as Beth mentioned, she uses both a Wacom Intuos and a Wacom One. The differences between these two are a Wacom Intuos is what we call internally an opaque tablet, or a tablet that you draw on where you wouldn't be able to see what you're drawing, but you would have a monitor. So both of these, you'll need to have a computer with a Mac or a Windows machine, but work great. The Wacom Intuos is a fantastic way to get started if you're interested. Works again with all of the Office programs, a smart notebook, the annotation tools like Ink2Go. So really anything from grading to doing virtual whiteboards, Wacom Intuos will enable you to do that. And also very easy to from a plug and play perspective, just a USB cord and it'll plug in, but also contains a Bluetooth wireless option that you can use. Also a great thing is both these products can be found at Best Buy. So you can go to your local Best Buy and pick one up. They have a great COVID-19 system where you can actually order online. Go to your Best Buy and they will actually deliver it to your car into your trunk. I've done that a few times myself. It's just a fantastic service that Best Buy can provide. And we also have our Wacom One, which is our portable display. So if you're looking for a little bit more control or a secondary monitor, Wacom One is a fantastic choice for educators. As Beth was saying, she was using it during her time here. As you can see, you know, just great ability to just draw and annotate anytime that you wish. Also can be available at Best Buy. Beth, can you go to the next slide here real quick? And then also wanted to call out, we do have our friends at B&H, which is a, if you're not from New York, you might not know this brand, but they're huge superstore of electronics located in New York City, but also have a very, very robust online business. They have a special educator discount program. If you sign up with them, you can get 5% off of any Wacom product and join in. So again, we have a lot of links inside the chat if you want to click off to Best Buy or B&H and find out. And again, wanted to thank you all for all the hard work you're doing. These are extremely challenging times, and you know, here at Wacom, we really appreciate you know, everything that educators are going through, and hopefully can equip you with equipment that can make that just a little bit easier. So thank you again.